This is Red Carpet Flies, news on the fly, bringing you daily unique and interesting entertainment, celebrity, and luxury news. Before we get started, you know what to do. Like, follow, and subscribe to Red Carpet Fly and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single News on the Fly episode. Okay, let's get into it. Storage Wars star Renee Nezhoda obtains FloJo's Olympic memorabilia. Storage Wars star Renee scored big on his latest find, unearthing tons of memorabilia that belonged to Olympic legend Florence Griffith Joyner, or FloJo. According to TMZ, Renee's friend George bought FloJo's storage locker 8 years ago in the San Diego area. Renee says he dropped several thousands of dollars to take the Olympic content off his hands, and his haul was very impressive. Renee walked away with Florence's Olympic jacket and even her signed track shoes, the ones that she wore while breaking world records. As you recall, Joyner broke records in the 1988 Seoul Olympics for both the 100-meter dash and 200-meter dash. She took home 3 gold medals that year. Also bought by Renee are rare photos, magazines featuring her, and autographed FloJo Barbies. Renee says he'll likely sell the pieces of history on eBay or through collectible auction house Heritage Auctions, but if a member of the FloJo family reaches out, he might work out a deal with them to return her personal items. FloJo died in 1998 after suffering a fatal epileptic seizure in her sleep. Apparently, her family paid the bills for the storage rental for years, but for some reason stopped, and that's why the locker went up for auction. The FloJo locker haul will not be featured on season 14 of Storage Wars, which premieres on March 8th. This is a crazy story. In those storage auctions, you just never know what treasures you might get. I used to own a FloJo Barbie when I was young. Do you guys watch Storage Wars? I wonder what they do when the haul ends up being nothing but trash. Do they sort it or recycle the stuff, or do they just throw everything out? Comment below if you know. So Carson Kressley dated an axe murderer. Okay, so this isn't a news story, and I actually heard about it a few weeks ago, but it's just now making its rounds on the blogs. RuPaul's Drag Race judge Carson Kressley recently spoke to Andy Cohen on Watch What Happens Live, and Kressley said the worst date of his life was one with a person he would categorize as an axe murderer. Apparently, Kressley had taken a guy home after a night at the bars, and the gentleman did not get down to business. However, he stated he wanted a sandwich, so the guy made himself a sandwich and then leaves. Weird, but not earth-shattering. Cut to later when Kressley happens upon a most wanted poster, and the man that he had taken home that night was wanted for multiple murders. Kressley came out ahead, not only by not getting axe murdered, but also by getting a story to eat on for the next decade. So Kressley actually told this story on the latest season of Celebrity Big Brother with Lamar Odom, Cynthia Bailey, and Todrick Hall. He told his castmates this story, and while it was surprising, the story is just now getting legs. I met Carson Kressley before during a Fashion Week event several years ago, and he's very smart and very nice. Such a nice guy. And he has lots of energy. I don't know where he gets all that energy from. Have you guys ever gone on a bad date? I've had a few of them. Really quickly, the first date I went on was when I was living in New York. I had gone on a date with this guy, and I suggested that we eat at this really nice Italian restaurant in Queens. So the guy and I go, and he ordered some type of pasta alla vodka dish and was killing it. I mean, he was like slurping up the sauce and everything. In the middle of all this, he mentioned that he was allergic to shellfish, and he asked me, did that dish have any shellfish? And I didn't know because I don't eat any kind of seafood, so I was unsure, and it turns out the dish had some type of shrimp or something in it. And it was just like at a scene of Hitch, but instead of both of us going to Duane Reade and getting, medicine or whatever, I ended up running to Duane Reade and buying out like the whole entire store to counter the allergic reaction. He ended up taking some type of antihistamine strips or whatever, and the date quickly ended. There was no romantic ending. The guy was so embarrassed he never called me again, and I didn't call him either. The second bad date I had is I went out with this guy who went to MIT. He had recently graduated and was so cute. At that time, I was interning for then Senator Hillary Clinton. Moving to New York was really rough for me, and I wasn't making very much money. So I met this guy, Mr. MIT, and he kept asking me out. And I make it a point never to go out with a guy if I don't have any money. It's just a rule of mine, just in case the date goes bad or something. I got my own and I can dip out. But after listening to friends and family, I decided to go out with Mr. MIT because, as my family and friends put it, he was the guy and he's treating me out. So I went out with this guy and we went out to this really nice Indian restaurant in Brooklyn, and the food was delicious. Well, at the end of the meal, when the bill comes, old dude turns to me and he was like, "We're splitting the bill, right?" And I was like, no, I didn't know that. And he proceeds to tell me that he can only cover his portion of the meal. So immediately I feel hot and I try to do that little search for my wallet so I can find my invisible money. I ended up telling Mr. MIT that I had to go to the ATM, and I left the restaurant and went to the closest bodega. I ended up calling my parents and crying because I knew I didn't have any money, and I was mad I had taken their advice to go out with this guy knowing I didn't have any money. I was gone for like a good 30 minutes or so, but my parents ended up transferring me money, and it was more than enough to cover for the meal. And when I returned to the restaurant, Mr. MIT was still there, and I ended up just paying for the whole meal. I covered his meal, my meal, everything. Anyways, needless to say, we didn't talk after that date. Looking back on the situation, the guy did just graduate from MIT and he didn't have much money. And from that experience, I learned to never go on dates without having money to cover everything, because you just never know. And I never want to be in that situation again. Do you guys have a bad dating experience? If so, comment below and share your story. Lastly, meet the Australian billionaire who's suing the Australian government on accusations of buying Hitler's car from a Russian owner. According to Luxury Launches, a story published by Perth Now has got mining billionaire Clive Palmer in the spotlight. The unvaccinated Australian politician has weathered not just lousy health this week, but has also landed in the center of a political storm. After being rushed to the hospital last week for both COVID-19 and pneumonia, the passionate car enthusiast is now accused of possessing a historically noteworthy but very contentious vehicle, Hitler's Mercedes-Benz 770. The dark blue armored custom-built 1939 Mercedes-Benz 770K Grosser Affineur limousine was witnessed carrying the Nazi dictator for 3 years, even on tours in Berlin, France, and Yugoslavia. Apparently, the billionaire purchased the vehicle from its Russian owner and prepared to bring it into Australia. The United Australian Party leader had ultimately denied the accusation. "I did not buy Hitler's car. It's more fake news," he said in a Twitter post. This denial is also backed by legal action against members of the Australian government for strewing false news. Twitter users were quick to comment on his declaration. One user said, "Bet you wanted to," while another asked, Question: did you ever consider purchasing the car or attempt to? It's no secret that Mr. Palmer desired to build a 600 car museum on the Gold Coast. No points for guessing which car would have stood out as the centerpiece. Besides the controversial car, Palmer also bought a 1929 Rolls-Royce owned by King Edward VIII, around $200,000. Whether Clive Palmer has Hitler's car in his possession or not, even the possibility had Australian politicians lashing out. From being a piece of Nazi memorabilia, car parts made with asbestos, to current sanctions against Russian oligarchs over the invasion of the Ukraine, they had several reasons to stand against the 67-year-old politician. According to Auto Evolution, Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews weighed in to say that the situation required a thorough investigation because no one was above the law, billionaire or not. So who is Clive Palmer? The Australian businessman and politician is worth $2.1 billion with iron ore, nickel, and coal holdings. Palmer owns many businesses such as Mineralogy, Warrath Coal, and Queensland's Nickel, in addition to several golf courses around the Gold Coast. The man also held Gold Coast United FC from 2008 to 2012. Back in May 2021, he was Australia's 7th richest man. It is a considerable feat knowing that in the mid-1980s, Palmer was a real estate agent. He did well from the property boom on the Gold Coast. Well, that's it for Red Carpet Fly's News on the Fly. Please like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Red Carpet Fly, and also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Red Carpet Fly. And until next time, always stay fly.